hope that the growth is going to continue to go.
The promise and the challenge of multi-channel retailing. Well, joining us to speak about that today is Norm Saenz, Principal and Senior Vice President at Trans Systems. Well, Norm, it's a pleasure to see you again. Welcome.
Thank you, Russ.
Norm, we've been hearing an awful lot about multi-channel enterprises, multi-channel retailing, and yet they're quite different. They're not all the same at all. What is your understanding of the differences?
That's a great question. I mean, fundamentally, retail's been around for a very long time. And retail, of course, as you know, a retailer can have 200 stores, 500 stores, maybe 1,000 stores, depending on the size of the retailer. And so when distribution centers were established to fulfill retail stores with the inventory they need, those distribution centers were set up to handle shipping to 200, 300, 500 stores. They ship to stores once a week, maybe twice a week. Retailers have different models, but generally they're around those parameters. And so a distribution center is set up to hold a lot of inventory, to then pick orders through if it's a manual process, it's going to have a certain number of locations to pick orders from. And then there might be automation involved where you're picking out of waves out of a 3-level pick module, and then sending shipments down to different areas in the shipping dock to then build up pallets of goods to load up a truck. So very large orders basically going out to stores. Of course, when e-com has come around serving the internet, the retailers obviously are like, we want to get into the retail business because there are some pure e-com type companies that all they do is have websites. Sure. So to compete with that, retailers are like, well, we can have a website. We have all this inventory. We have a distribution center. We can fulfill orders for for people at home. And so the initial response, is I'm going to fulfill these out of the distribution center. But internet orders, if depending on how fast you ramp up, you can get to 10,000 orders in a day. You have shipments now of one product or 2 products at most. And the frequency of orders is unpredicted and constant. So it's a much different model. Retailers, they're scheduling their shipments. They may not know exactly what they're going to ship, but they know it's in their store. They know kind of the forecasting that they put in place, and it's a more predictive, more manageable type of fulfillment. But e-com, like I said, there's an unpredicted amount of orders that are going to come in. Those orders are onesie, twosies, and there's thousands and thousands of orders that can come in. And so the two businesses are much different. And so that's what retailers are facing then is what do I do with this? How do I handle this?
All of the permutations, it seems to me, while they're wonderful for the consumer, there are all these options for you to receive something or to pick up something if you have an in-store arrangement. But clearly there are any number of challenges. I mean, whether we call this merged retailing, merged channel retailing, or omni-channel retailing, whatever the terminology might be, there are all these different variations here. And clearly the challenges have to have been multiplied at the same time. And I appreciate that a lot of retailers may not have been aware of all of those differences and the hurdles that had to be jumped, in order to get into something
Right.
that perhaps, as you say, a pure play e-tailer was doing.
Right.
Nevertheless, that's the arena they want to play in now. They want to do all of these things. So let's walk through some of those challenges a little bit more. Develop for us how it is that a formerly purely brick and mortar retailer can play in this space.
Sure. I mean, the first impulse, and really, we've worked with a lot of retailers, and depending on how well their e-com business is doing, there's different levels of volume that they might be handling. But I think the impulse initially is, let me try to fulfill these orders out of our exact same distribution center, material handling system and storage equipment. And so you can start to try to do that. But I think companies realize very quickly that they're shipping out totes full of product to go to their stores, and then you have one tote that's got one item in it that's coming through. And if you have 1,000 of those totes with 1 or 2 items, or even if you try to batch pick a new kind of batching technology, it's going to take a while for that internet order to get through the potentially maze of conveyor that's out there to efficiently handle retail shipping. So at first, I think companies say, let me try to use my existing infrastructure. I don't have to spend any money, right? I'm just going to use the same stuff I have for stores. But I think companies realize that doesn't work very well. And so the next step is, well, maybe I'll set up inside my current facility a separate area for internet. And so that's what a lot of companies did. Let me set up a shelving area, low cost type infrastructure, use carts. Let me set up my items in this area, duplicate locations. Let me fulfill out of that space. And I think that does, a lot of companies are doing that today, that works. But when your volumes start to go a little higher and you start, good and bad, you're getting more successful in your e-com. Now you've got this somewhat inefficient manual process inside the facility there with shelving and carts, and it's not working out right. So the next obvious option is, you know what, this is doing well. There are companies out there that do this for a living, a third-party provider. So now you say, well, let me consider a third-party provider to do my e-com fulfillment for us. And so there's a lot of companies now today that are using 3PLs. And there's some 3PLs that have made it their business to be e-com fulfillment experts. So it's a natural, and in some companies, by the way, that's the first step they make. You know what, we're a retailer, we're not an e-com fulfillment, we're gonna go right to a 3PL. So like I'm trying to say is that there's all these options in it, and what's right for you, you can go right to a 3PL at first and see how that goes. And then of course, if you're doing super well, you might decide to set up your own distribution center, somewhat smaller, to fulfill internet orders yourself. So I believe those are kind of the four basic options. Try to run it through your current system, see if you can get the efficiency, get the cycle time needed, because one thing I haven't mentioned yet is e-com internet buyers, they want it next day. They want it really quick, right? And so can you get the order out really quick in your current environment? Maybe not. But so then look to set it up yourself in your facility in a kind of a manual environment. Does that work? Can you keep up with the volume? Can you get the orders out? And then, of course, set up your own DC or look at a 3PL. So those are kind of the landscape of options we help our clients with and that companies are looking at. And like I said, all those things I just mentioned are happening right now for retailers and fulfilling e-com. Those four different ways are in practice right now. And so we've got some companies we know that are at a 3PL, and even the 3PL, because there's only so many 3PLs that are really good at this too. And there's a lot of retailers using the same 3PL, believe it or not. And so some of our clients are pulling out of the 3PL and putting it into their own distribution center. So going to that one of those options from a 3PL back to self-distribution, just because it's been doing so well.
It's interesting that you should mention that, because clearly many companies realize that, look, our core competency is selling. It's not fulfilling, it's not delivering, and so that's why they outsource that function. And yet you're telling me that a number of companies are finding that for whatever reason, working with a given 3PL is not working for them, and they want to pull it back in-house, something that they had pushed out of house, originally.
Yeah,
it's an interesting development. How are they becoming any better at it now than they were initially?
That's a great question. The 3PL, I think that the ones that are pulling it back in made the decision to make 3PL be the first choice. So they add e-com, their initial response is, let's use a 3PL, they're great at it, they can do it. And I think that worked for a few years. And if it's not but if that 3PL's business has been booming with multiple other clients, some retailers are seeing that their customers, their internet customers, maybe aren't happy. It's not working as well as before, and some companies have problems with 3PLs when they realize they've taken their name and handed it over to someone else. Their reputation is now in that 3PL.
Sure, it's a
and
stake.
So whether they and certainly through those years of using a 3PL, they visited that facility, they've seen the operation. They're learning how to do e-com, and they then can focus their minds around setting up their own facility to maybe do it better, because they're going to have the focus and maybe a little more care on their customer satisfaction.
Well, assuming they have all the right automation,
right.
For sure. One of the things we're hearing about right now, it's quite a bit of buzz in the business press, is not next day delivery, but same day delivery. Question to you. What's your view about that? Is that something that's got any traction? Is that really going to go anywhere? Is it going to grow? Is it going to be with us? What's your thought?
I think we have to be prepared for same-day delivery. And I haven't seen it a lot. I've still heard next day more than I have same day. But, and I certainly, there has to be some restrictions on geographically where they are and cutoff times on websites and order it by this point. But as competition, is out there, there is going to be, whoever can get it same day, is going to get that order, because it's pretty easy these days to go on a website, look for a product that you're looking to purchase and compare multiple options and see who can get it to me the quickest, the cheapest, and that person is likely gonna win the business.
Your final thoughts then on the promise and the challenges of multi-channel retailing. What are they?
Well, I think that the growth is going to continue to go. I think 3-5 years ago, or maybe even before that, e-com was really starting to grow, and it kind of fizzled a little bit when the economy fizzled a little bit. But I see it just growing right now, and I think it's because the mobile channel term is now out there, which wasn't there a few years ago. The mobile units in the consumer's hand is making it much easier to go online and purchase. I mean, the person that was buying online before can now really buy online very conveniently with their phone anywhere they are. So they're just ordering a lot more frequently. And then you have the people that maybe weren't buying online before, but now they have this great phone with all these apps for every retailer.
Mobile commerce.
Yeah, mobile commerce is really gonna continue to push the envelope on e-com volumes growing. So I think companies need to start looking hard at the 3 or 4 ways they might be fulfilling internet business right now, and take a hard look at how they can do it the most effective way to be competitive.
Going to be exciting going forward, no doubt about it. Norm, I know you're busy at the conference here, but you found time to sit down and speak with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
That's Norm Saenz, Trans Systems, speaking with us today about multi-channel retailing and multi-channel logistics challenges. Well, thank you for watching.